Goed, I'm ready.
All right. So hello, Daan. Thank you for this nice video mini conference or answer question.
Yeah.
And hello to all the participants of the workshop that was due to take place in Paris from the 12th till the 14th of June. And of course, due to obvious and COVID reasons, this was cancelled. So we made a little, we prepared a little something just to keep the workshop alive. And Catherine and Celine, they also helped in organizing this, setting this up. They also gave me some questions. And so, yeah, let's get going, Daan.
Yeah.
And maybe also even start with the elephant in the room. Why cancel? Aren't we all healers and shamanic practitioners? And aren't we supposed to be able to overcome a little virus, Daan?
Well, the answer is no. In shamanic cultures, people died of pneumonia. Native American cultures were decimated by the measles and smallpox. And even though they were still at the living height of the shamanic tradition then, with powerful medicine men and women, they were not able to battle these microbes. So no, we cannot. We can strengthen our immune system. We can maybe sharpen our intuition which situations to avoid more, but we cannot battle a virus with the shamanic means. No.
When the pandemic started, my first reflex was like, oh, what is happening now seems to be part of some gigantic cosmic plan, and I just don't really know yet what that master plan is that is unfolding right now. And I was a bit desperate and thinking like, who will give me an answer? What do the spirits know that I don't know? What do wiser people know that I don't know? And well, basically I also wrote you and I asked you this question, and I was wondering if you could also share the answer to that question.
And the question is, if you put it really simple?
If I put it really simple, was this pandemic part of a master plan? What do the spirits know that I don't know? Is this a master plan?
Oh. If this is sorry that I have to laugh, but if this is part of a master plan, I don't know the master. So nobody told me about it. And I think it is basically, to put it not so elegant, the result of a big fuck up of what we people as a species are doing by destroying nature. And, illnesses like COVID-19 and Ebola and other things that we've seen in the last year, they all come from nature one way or another. And I think it's nature's way to try to stop us from eating everything up. And I don't think there's a plan, but I think it is simply the result of what we do to the planet. And it may be that, of course, on an individual level, for some people, this time can be used for growth or development or for changing their life. That's wonderful. But I don't think at all, personally, that some kind of enlightened universal spirit said, this is what we're going to do now. There are chances to do it different after this. But if you see that the oil companies and the airplane companies got like billions and billions of euros and culture got only this little, I think it's not really going to. I don't see a master plan, personally, unfortunately. So I cannot be of comfort there.
Yeah. But you said there is, it's a reaction. You pose it like nature is responding. Would you say there is a consciousness?
No, well, what they expect now is that COVID-19, actually, this particular coronavirus existed in bats, and they come from a cave in China where they were doing mining. And that's where, I think 2 years ago, the first cases actually appeared, and that was the virus was then taken into a laboratory. If if we keep taking everything apart, if we go into every cave, if we cut down every forest, if we eat every animal, at some point, the viruses and diseases that belong to these places will start to come to us. I don't think that's a conscious choice. I think it is just a logical result. If you put your fingers in a pot of paint, you get colored fingers. If you go in places where animals have weird diseases, at some point that disease will start to touch you. So I don't see in that sense a conscious intelligence. I think it's really the result of our actions. Mm-hmm. I know many people would like to see it differently, but I think that is just, for me, I don't see a reason to believe that. It doesn't bring me comfort. Mm-hmm. Because what I see is that billions of people are descending in poverty. The increase of domestic abuse has gone up. There is so much suffering, much more crime. Some of the countries that really have failed states already, the violence in the streets, the fights for foods are already beginning. I don't see any nice master plan there. I just see trouble, and hopefully we can deal with it in a responsible way. But no.
But you don't seem very confident it will.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of intelligence in the room. But with world leaders like Trump and Putin, and you name them, it's not a very lucky situation, right?
No.
No.
But then also, like, the team of the workshop, and speaking of some kind of cosmic master plan, nonetheless, the team of the workshop, who was the inside and the outside, mm-hmm. It seems now at least extremely foresighted. If you would frame it in a certain way, how would you have introduced the team from a shamanic perspective?
No memory. I have no memory of that. What usually happens is that at the end of a workshop, in the days after a workshop, when I'm starting to relax and slow down, then usually I pray and I sit down and I ask what is the next theme, and something will come up. But that is usually just an intention or a very almost abstract theme. And then I write down something about it, but I have no memory of what I wrote down actually. And I did not have a set of exercises or plans yet, because that comes only then 2 or 3 weeks before the workshop. I start to prepare and pray and think and plan. And that never happened because of COVID. So until now, I have not been able to give very interesting answers.
Mm-hmm. But if you would have to introduce the team now to the people who would have participated to the workshop, and having had the experience we've all had the past few months, how would you introduce?
Difficult question, because I really have no recollection of what I was actually intending in practical terms. If I look at what is happening now in the world, it's very interesting how much polarization is going on, with a lot of aggression, a lot of how do you call that? Conspiracy theories about what's actually going on. And I think people are desperate for a sense of control. Now, if you say there is a conspiracy because there is a group of people who's actually doing this, then there is some kind of control, because then you can kill those people. Or if Bill Gates wants to implant you with a microchip, it's got some crazy stuff. I've heard so many crazy theories, and they are all blaming somebody else, which means that you are innocent and you just have to, this is wonderful saying, in times of trouble, the wise look for solutions, the dumb look for the guilty. And what I see is there's a lot of blaming and pointing outside, like, so I would be very interesting, like what is going outside now around us with all this aggressive energy and all this survival energy. How do you match that? How do you mirror that? What in you wants to blame? What in you does not want responsibility? But also, what can arise in us to not fall for these conspiracy theories and for these like crazy accusations that are going on? So it would be the theme now, inside outside, would be a very interesting thing to work on, mostly psychological first, like the voice that is afraid, the voice that is angry, the part of you that wants no responsibility, the part of you that wants to be saved. There's a lot of inner voices that need attention and that try to influence the discussion. So how could you find in yourself an inner strength that can simply see it for what it is and doesn't get swept away by all these emotional currents that are around us? So it would certainly be an interesting theme to work with. Yeah, I don't know if that's what I planned, but I don't think so. But no.
Okay. Well, a lot of the work of a shaman is about creating connections, strengthening relations, healing damaged connections.
Yeah.
But can isolation also be a remedy sometimes? Is connecting with one thing maybe also a choice of not connecting with another thing? And where does separation or isolation play a role in the work of a shaman?
Mm. Well, you know, I think what is very different in this time is that in a classic initiation process, or how can you say, when the shaman goes in isolation, either to find a vision or to go in a journey or to transform, there are always people who know this and who pray for that person. So the isolation of the shaman, the loneliness of the shaman, because he or she is the one who contacts the spirits and the others are not doing it. So the loneliness and the isolation that the shaman experiences is always supported by the community, by the shaman's teachers, the shaman's assistants, etc. And it is usually ritualized. So it is, let's say, for one day and a night, or it is for 3 days. For us, it's very different. We are not supported by something, plus we don't know how long it takes. There's no ritual around it. So my guess is if you would create a ritual, if there is a lockdown, and you would start the day with calling in the spirits, the ancestors who have known isolation, who maybe have been imprisoned or who got lost or who had to migrate to a place where they didn't know anybody. If you would say, I am in isolation now, please surround me. I had a very interesting experience myself. In the beginning of the lockdown, I was doing a lot of handwork. And so most of the day I was sitting, stitching with a needle, textiles. And then I started to feel my ancestors, because up till 1480, that's more than 500 years, I have all the names of my male lineage, and they were all tailors and shoemakers, all of them. And I started to feel all these men behind me, this long line, more than 500 years. And I could see them and feel them sitting for days, for weeks, for years in their little, you know, usually they work from a place in their own home. And just this endless repetitive movement. And I could feel them in my body, in my soul, in my surrounding. And it really, I was alone, but I was in a community also. So that ended on some level a particular kind of loneliness for me. So I think that at the beginning of the lockdown, there was no ritual. There was just fear. There was an order. There was not an initiation. But I think we can, to a certain extent, bring that in by ritualizing our experience, by asking the ancestors who went through similar experiences to be with us, to connect to them, to give, maybe make an altar with stones for these ancestors and invite them again and again. And whenever there's fear, whenever there is depression, whenever there's anger, to sit there and to say, you know this too. I'm not alone in this.
Mm-hmm. And like the practice of how to say, is there a moment in a shamanic practice where he is consciously trying to separate something or to try to disconnect something? Does this exist?
Please elaborate a little bit. Disconnect from what?
Well, when I introduced the question, I think a lot of the let's say the exercises we've had from you during the other workshops, most of them are about connecting with something, and there is
like what I said right now.
Yeah, there is always a positive, let's say a positive gesture, but is there also like a negative gesture of disconnecting from something? Does that happen, or how does it?
The problem is when you disconnect because you are, how can I say, a lot of the time when we disconnect, we try to cut something off and get rid of it, but it doesn't stop existing. So even when we want to disconnect from something, we have to connect to something that can receive that, what we want to get away from. So just the movement of pushing something away creates trouble, because you create a shadow, you create a disowned part. Mm-hmm. It will always come back indirectly, just pure psychological knowledge. So the shamanic way is, certainly energies can be in the wrong place. They can hinder us, they can trouble us, our own parts of ourselves can trouble us, our fear, our this, our that, but we never just separate from them, because then these energies become lost souls and they will hunt others, or they come back in your dreams. So the act of separation starts with the act of connecting to a force that is large and strong enough to receive that what you want to get rid of.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer.
Yeah, and then it's a very safe movement.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually also included when I said, in the times of isolation and when you are afraid or angry or hurt or going crazy or whatever, if you make an altar for the ancestors who went through similar experiences, then you can sit there and say, I cannot hold it now. My fear is too big. Please carry it together with me. Then you, in a way, give that fear to the ancestors and they will carry it with you. So it is both a connection to the ancestors and a release of energy.
No, thank you. Makes it really clear for me, and also safe, because it's let's say a lot of the things you want to get rid of or that you don't like in your life, it seems that you have to disconnect from them in some way or another. But in this way, yeah, you can make a connection with something else to create.
Yeah, by connecting the things we do not like, usually they need healing or they need to be contained. Well, for healing, we need a healer, and for containment, we need a container. So it always starts with connecting. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. I wanted to also ask you a question about, the people who go to the workshop. Well, for me, the workshop personally, it gives me a boost in my shamanic practice, fresh insights, fresh feelings, fresh exercises, things that inspire. But personally, I don't work with patients, and maybe my practice is actually maybe sometimes a bit isolated, or maybe just for myself in a way, maybe a bit egoistical in a way, although of course things you do for yourself will translate to the wider environment, hopefully. And I also have just a regular job, and sometimes when I think about the practice, I feel that shamanic practice is something that is well, maybe only could only be taken serious if you do it seriously. So you always need an initiation, or maybe need to be chosen in some way. Yeah? So most of the shamans, they discover at one point in their life that they are a shaman, or there is, let's say, maybe a slightly bigger force that drives them through a series of events or encounters to this. So is it, my question actually is then, is it worth it to aspire being a shamanic practitioner if you cannot dedicate your life fully to it?
Well, is it worth to learn how to bake a cake even if you don't want to become a full-time cook? Is it worth to go and sing in a choir once a week and have a wonderful evening without wanting to be a professional singer? Is the same question, of course. I'm not a shaman. I'm not a full-time practitioner. Uh, it frightens me to have to think I would have to do it all the time. So there's absolutely no reason not to use some kind of spirituality or shamanism, whatever it is, in your life. You don't have to become a full-time practitioner at all. It's really not necessary. And I think that in the end, all these practices are there to help us to lead our life. So we need our life, we need our, friendships, to take care of the dog, we have to take responsibility, pay the tax, do all these things. And then we add some kind of spiritual practice and ritual a little bit to that, so that these things become easier and that we can keep our energy in a good way. So for me, it's always been integrated into other aspects of my life. And so the answer is yes, please feel absolutely always that you can do that. And actually, that is a much more balanced way than doing it full time. The people who I know who claim to be full-time practitioner shamans, well, usually there's an imbalance there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a liberating answer for me.
Great. Well, good that you asked the question.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe I'm just too ambitious, just in a way that maybe.
Well, I think that shamanism is it's exotic. It comes from other cultures. These cultures are completely romanticized. They are idealized. Um, Native American Indian cultures, some of the cultures had slaves. They tortured their enemies to death. Some animal species went extinct before white people colonized America. People are people, and shamanism is just shamanism. And in the Western world, it is very much idealized because there are very few traditional practitioners who can correct us and to stop the idealization. Anybody who traveled or who trained with a traditional teacher for some time, they don't have these romantic ideas. They don't. So forget the ideas, really. They are not helpful. Even the idea that you should be called to be a shaman, then some people can say, I am called and you are not. And it becomes this whole crazy status thing. I have not been called. Personally, I don't see I was called. When I look back, I can see I had choices. I find a book, I can read it. I meet a person, he says, do you want to meet this other person? I say yes or no. There are chances, doors open and you can enter or not. I see I had choices, but I do not feel there was like a fixed plan or an initiation that made me a shaman. Not at all. No. It's a step-by-step process.